Fishing, often referred to as angling, is one of the most serene and zen-like activities you can experience. However, the calm and meditative nature of fishing sometimes earns it the reputation of being a little dull. But here's the twist: fishing isn't always about quiet reflection. It can also be an incredibly unpredictable and exciting hobby. This video showcases 20 unbelievable fishing anomalies that defy expectations and prove just how wild the world of fishing can be. Number 20. Poisonous scorpion fish. Here we are, scrambling out on the rocks with a fisherman in Thailand who's trying to catch some very weird stuff. One of the things that he's managed to catch is a poisonous scorpion fish. These are not the friendliest of fish, and you would want to be pretty careful when messing about with this kind of species. Scorpion fish are among the most venomous species of fish in the world. They have stingers that are composed of sharp spines coated with a kind of venomous mucus. These fish are mainly found in the Pacific and Indian Oceans, but there are some species, like lionfish, that are also found in the Caribbean and the Mediterranean seas. The lionfish is actually native to the Indo-Pacific region, but lately, this ornate ocean dweller has been popping up all over the place, and that's a bit of a problem. Now considered an invasive species in the coastal waters off the U.S. Southeast and the Caribbean, these fish are doing more harm than good to the delicate ecosystems in these areas. The lionfish is a predatory species, and since settling into new waters, it has been systematically scoffing all kinds of creatures that it has no business interfering with. It's known to be doing untold damage to the balance of sea life on the reefs. They eat up too many parrotfish, which means with no parrotfish to eat it, there is just too much seaweed. They also compete with native fish like grouper and snapper, leaving less available to sustain those species. Number 19. Two-mouthed fish. Now, it's never a brilliant public relations thing for a place when a mutant fish is pulled out of a nearby body of water, especially one that has extra parts. This is usually where people will start looking for the nuclear testing facility or toxic waste dumping ground, and there are plenty of those places all across America. Whether or not this is the reason that the fish has developed in an unusual way, well, that simply remains to be seen. This is the story of a woman who was fishing on Lake Champlain, on the New York-Vermont border, when she caught a creature that caught her by surprise. The fish, which seems to be a lake trout, has two mouths, one on top of the other, kind of like it has two heads but also not. The fishing team, intrigued by what a member had caught, naturally did what all humans do in these sorts of situations. They posted a picture of the weird creature on Facebook. And, like people do, all kinds of stories emerged about other two-headed and double-mouthed mystery fish that have been encountered by people over the years. But then again, everyone has a big fish story of some sort now, don't they? What would be impressive is if they had reeled in the Lake Champlain monster, because that would be something to see. Number 18. Maine's biggest lobster. And in the red corner, weighing in at 27 pounds of pure punching power, a lobster, used to a much more miniature catch. Maine fisherman Robert Malone was in for quite the big shock when he hauled in a colossal crustacean in his net. Not unfamiliar with the odd lobster, of course, he was taken aback by the sheer scale of this massive beast. He found it notable enough to deliver the creature to the Maine State Aquarium for further scientific investigation. Was this a new monster species or a Jurassic Park escapee? Turns out, no, it was just a regular old lobster. However, this one did capture the imagination of all those who encountered it, being the biggest example that many had ever seen. Nicknamed Rocky, on account of the crustacean's enormous boxing glove-like claws, this lucky lobster was returned to the ocean after the aquarium had taken down its vital statistics. I just wonder if Rocky's still out there running up flights of stairs and bulking up in training to knock out the next unsuspecting fisherman to catch him in his net. Number 17. Three-headed frog. All the way back in 2004, a bunch of nursery school kids had a surprise that probably adjusted some of their perceptions of how stuff works, at least for a little while anyway. This is a super strange three-headed, six-legged frog that was found in the pond of the Green Umbrella Nursery School in Weston-super-Mare in the United Kingdom. The children had been playing outside when they found the mutant frog and put it into a bucket to show their teachers. Although it had initially appeared to be a bunch of frogs forming a pyramid, a closer inspection showed them that this was actually three frogs, or conjoined froggy triplet. They took a few pictures before the frog managed to escape, so nobody was really able to make a real-life verification of the creature. But a so-called expert weighed in and said that it was indeed very unusual and most likely the sign of pollution or perhaps climate change or, another kind of portent of doom. These things always are, aren't they? I mean, frogs rain from the sky, mutant amphibians appear in Somerset, and it basically means that the end of the world is definitely nigh. Because, of course, it does. Number 16. Mysterious creature in Thailand. Well, what the heck do we actually have here? This is certainly one for the old nightmare banks now, isn't it? This is allegedly a mysterious creature that some repugnant little troll on YouTube decided to film for all of us to marvel at. Except, what in the world is this thing and why, oh why, did we all get selected to look directly at it? That's my main gripe here. I mean, evidently they're being vague and mysterious, saying creature, but the monstrous mess they appear to have put together is clearly supposed to be some kind of mermaid or some such other nonsense. The video itself is grainy and shaky, which only adds to the unsettling nature of the creature. Some viewers speculate it might be an elaborate hoax, possibly a strange sculpture or an edited clip to generate clicks and attention. Others suggest it could be a deformed fish or some unknown deep-sea species dragged up by accident. The lack of concrete details or follow-up investigation only fuels the bizarre theories swirling around the internet. It has a fish body and a weird, bulbous head, and those two things alone would not be quite so discombobulating. I mean, then it could just be a weird fish or something. But no, this particularly mysterious creature has arms. That's right, arms. But not any regular old arms. These things look more like creepy frog arms or alien appendages. You know, some other kind of heinous, bad dream depiction of a monster creature that's going to haunt the shiz out of you forevermore. So, shall we move swiftly on, please? Can we just stop looking at this thing now? Now it's time for today's topic. For months, fishermen off the coast of Western Australia were perplexed and frustrated. Every morning, they would retrieve their fishing nets, only to find them empty, shredded, or stripped of their valuable catch. Overnight, large fish weighing hundreds of pounds were mysteriously vanishing, leaving behind nothing but deep teeth marks and broken gear. Rumors swirled among the fishing community. Was it a rogue shark, a giant squid, or something far worse? Determined to solve the mystery, a group of seasoned fishermen devised a daring plan. They set an explosive trap in their largest net, baited with several tons of fish, and dropped it into the deep waters. The next morning, they hauled up their catch, and what they found sent chills down their spines. Thrashing violently in the net was a grotesque creature unlike anything they'd ever seen. Over 30 feet long, its body resembled a whale, but its mouth was lined with rows of razor-sharp teeth, more like a predator from nightmares. Its massive jaws could swallow a man whole. Scientists who later examined the creature suggested it might be a mutated species of whale or an ancient predator awakened by rising ocean temperatures. As fishermen watched the beast take its last breaths, one chilling question lingered. If this is what they've caught, what else might be lurking in the unexplored depths of the ocean? Number 15. Two-headed whale found in Mexico. Occasionally in nature, there are cases of conjoined twins that actually make it to full term and are born, but then sadly have no way to survive once outside of the womb. That's what happened to these conjoined whale twins that were born off the coast of Baja California. The whale calves were discovered in a lagoon in the Mexican peninsula back in 2014 and were still alive when marine biologists were called to the location, but they sadly died shortly after. What a bummer. Linked at the waist, the two whales had both of their full heads and tail fins, but they were fused in the center, likely as not sharing vital organs. The Mexican government sent in scientists to investigate and document the extremely rare occurrence, and they took samples of their skin, muscles, and bone from the unfortunate animals in order to conduct further investigations. This area is well known as a place where whales come to mate and give birth after traveling down from the chilly waters of Alaska. So, it's no surprise that every once in a while there are complications in the birth of a calf. This discovery of conjoined whales is, however, not something that anyone sees every day. But who would actually want to? The poor babies. Number 14. The faceless fish. When scientists on a trek in Australian waters were out cataloging the deep-sea creatures in the region in 2017, they happened upon an especially unusual fish that has been giving everyone the creeps ever since. This is a faceless fish that was caught at a depth of about 13,000 feet. It is called a Typhonus nasus. The water down there is intensely cold, about 34 degrees Fahrenheit, and the pressure is enormous. Not a whole lot of things can survive. Almost half a meter long, this fish has no eyes. But despite the fact that this seemed like a new and terrifying sort of mutant species, it had already been discovered all the way back in 1874, when the very first global oceanography expedition had set out aboard the HMS Challenger. They had gathered up the very first specimen of this creepy, faceless monster fish in waters just outside of the Australian region all the way back then. And although they call it faceless, it does actually have a mouth, but it's situated on the very bottom of the creature. So, when it's viewed from the side, it is completely invisible. Researchers have begun to give this weird fish the common name of the faceless cusk, which, although it sounds like an insult, is just a description of this deep-water dweller. Number 13. Man claims he caught three-eyed catfish. Much like the three-eyed fish called Blinky from The Simpsons, here is a three-eyed fish from the real world that was allegedly caught by a fisherman in Brooklyn, New York, and apparently it was near Whole Foods. But whether that's related or not seems a little bit silly. Anyway, the image does seem to show a fish with three eyes, but is it just a tiny bit suspiciously symmetrical? That is nuts. This is a dubious video that a dubious person did, but the fact remains that the place in which he claims to have caught the fish is a filthy pit of the most disgusting detritus that Brooklyn has ever expelled. So, there could be at least a grain of truth to the tall tale. This is a canal that runs through the center of Brooklyn, New York. It was once lined with factories that dumped all of their waste out into it, including raw sewage and coal byproducts, and they did it directly into the canal water. In fact, the place was so intensely hazardous to health that it was once designated a Superfund site in 2010, meaning that it was to get a bunch of extra cash to clean up all the contamination. In 2012, the Environmental Protection Agency found a ton of different toxic chemicals in the canal's water. There was lead, mercury, PCBs, pesticides, and nitrogen, all at dangerously high levels. The canal was set to be dredged and capped back in 2017. Number 12. Half fish. Well, this one's rather hideous. But then again, here we are. This is a fisherman named Franklin Kber, who likes to film himself out reeling in the fishes. He spends an inordinate amount of time taking pictures with his mouth wide open in mock amazement at the size of the fish that he's just caught, or somewhat more creepily, in mid-smooch with said catch. The half-eaten fish in question looks like it might have been the victim of a much larger predator, possibly a shark or barracuda, lurking in the waters. The clean bite marks suggest a swift and powerful attack, leaving little chance for the fish to escape. Franklin, of course, seems less interested in the story of the attack and more focused on turning the unfortunate fish into another social media moment. His followers seem equally fascinated, speculating wildly about what could have taken such a chunk out of the catch. You know, this Franklin guy has some weird dead fish fetish or something. But anyhow, the video shows him out and about in the glorious sunshine, living his best life and catching all the fish, when he reels one in only to discover that some other predator has been there first and eaten up half of the big fish already. Oh, that's grim. Oh, he still gives it a kiss for the camera, though. Wow. Shall we move swiftly on then? Number 11. Grumpy fish face. While it's fairly regular to say that fish don't usually go around with especially grumpy faces, there's a standard fish face that people are kind of used to. So, when this one was caught in the brackish waters near the sea in southern Thailand's Krabi province, it's safe to say that people were somewhat taken aback. This extremely grumpy-faced fish has been compared to the villainous Freddy Krueger from A Nightmare on Elm Street. The fisherman that caught the monstrous beastie first of all thought that it was nothing more than a bundle of wet leaves. But upon closer inspection, he discovered it was actually a fish, and a super creepy one at that. It had black pellet-shaped eyes and a whole wide mouth with gross, gnarly skin, and had a mean look in its eyes. Perhaps the people in this Thai village have watched rather too many cheesy 80s horror films or maybe have especially overactive imaginations, but they decided that it was totally terrifying and looked like a horror movie character. So, what do you reckon the fish looks like? Go on and have a whole bunch of opinions in the comment section down below. I know you want to. Number 10. Large catfish. Back in 2015, this fisherman who goes by the name of Dino Ferrari apparently managed to catch an astonishingly large catfish in the Po River in Italy. Well, good for him. The fish was flipping enormous, and it seemed that it measured a ludicrous 8 feet and 9 inches in length and weighed 280 pounds. That is, and it took a full 40 minutes to reel the whopper in. I mean, that's hardly surprising. The thing's basically a whale at that point. Dino and his brother snapped a whole lot of pictures with the fish while it slowly started to suffocate, and then they returned it to the river. People who first saw the picture couldn't actually believe that it was real, so Dino released a video in which he demonstrated the authenticity of the fish and its seemingly impossible size. The thing is, though, is this the only one that has grown to this size, or could there actually be others? A terrifying thought. And frankly, the idea that this is what fish are like now is going to be haunting my nightmares. But what do you think? Could this be the evolution of catfish? Are these insanely big fish going to take over the world and eat everything in their path? Go on and give me all your fabulous opinions in the comment section down below. I know you want to. Number 9. Fish throwing up its stomach. Well, great. Here's a video of a fish suffering a hideous ending. The fish is throwing up its stomach. This is something that happens when a fish is caught on a line and reeled up to the surface when they're in deep waters. A fish's insides, its swim bladder to be precise, contain gases, and these are at a steady pressure. But guess what? When you drag a fish all the way up through the different levels of pressure to the surface all of a sudden, well, that will cause that pressure to change in the gases and expand rapidly. The result of all that expansion of gas inside the fish is a variety of horrible symptoms, including bulging eyes, clouded crystallized eyes, and the stomach protruding out of the mouth. This is called barotrauma, and it's seen in many fish that are caught below 50 feet and then dragged to the surface, causing sudden changes in pressure in the swim bladder gases. It is absolutely hideous, but even though it looks like it's dead, the fish probably isn't dead yet. It's just struggling for sure, but the death is not a quick thing for a fish out of water. This is a horrible video, isn't it? Number 8. Suckermouth catfish. Next up, we have a video of a dopey guy who was apparently catching a fish while out fishing in Texas. He took a video and returned it to the water, and that's where he went wrong. This is an invasive species known as the suckermouth armored catfish, and it is basically now a problem in Texas. These fish have been found in their hundreds in Texas rivers, and they're causing so much damage that they're now being pulled from the state's waterways in a desperate effort to limit the destruction of the natural ecology of the region. These suckermouth catfish come from South America and were often kept as aquarium fish, which is how the invasive species came to populate the waters of Texas. Someone released their aquarium fish into the river, and then the rest is history. The fish is thriving, but this is coming at a devastating cost for many native species. They're known to eat algae, which is why they're chosen for aquariums, but they're also causing distress to manatees in Florida, where they are also invasive, by swarming them in large numbers to eat the algae that grows upon the sea cows. In Texas, these creatures are threatening the environment, but they're also equipped with lungs that allow them to breathe out of water for quite some time, and they can even move on land. This means that they aren't as confined to the waterways in which they have been found, and it also means that they can travel. Number 7. Fish with bulging eyeballs. As we have recently been learning, the pressure changes that a fish experiences as it's pulled from the deep sea to the surface can have all kinds of horrible effects. Any so-called fisherman would probably be aware of that phenomenon. But apparently, this is a video of a Russian fisherman who has caught a peculiar deep-sea fish with bulging eyeballs. Any real fisherman of deep-sea fish would know that barotrauma is a thing that happens to fish that usually live in deeper waters and are reeled in, or otherwise dragged to the surface, quickly. Basically, like when deep-sea divers get the bends, the change in pressure in the gases and the swim bladder will sometimes cause a fish to have all kinds of issues like expanded intestines, the stomach sticking out of their mouths, and bulging eyeballs. So, this is not a mystery fish, nor an alien, nor even a mutant, and not a new species. It's just a poor, unfortunate fish that is suffering from the regular effects of the changes in pressure. Mystery solved. And perhaps the fisherman just needs to pay more attention, but who could possibly say? Number 6. Alligator gar. An alligator gar is a kind of freshwater fish that's native to North America. They have a long and narrow torpedo of a body with a short, wide snout and rows of nasty and vicious teeth. These fish are fearsome ambush predators that stalk the waters of lakes in hunt of fish, waterfowl, and other small mammals. They usually measure around 5 or 6 feet long, so they're kind of large but generally nothing to write home about, or that's what people think most of the time anyways, because these things can actually get pretty huge. Back in 1951, a really massive alligator gar was caught in Texas. That specimen weighed a mighty 279 pounds and set all kinds of records. But this record was completely blown out of the water by a catch in 2019 in Mississippi. This one measured an incredible 8 feet long, weighing in at a record-crushing 327 pounds. It's believed that this old lady of the lake was probably between 50 and 70 years old when she was caught. Usually, these kinds of fish would be subject to a catch-and-return system, but the fisherman responsible said this big fish was caught in the net and didn't survive the encounter. This might be the biggest fish I've ever caught. Seems like more than a pity that this elderly creature was plucked in such an untimely and thoughtless way from the water. And it begs the question, how many more years might she have lived had she been left well alone? Number 5. Napoleon fish. Here's a video of a guy catching a big old Napoleon fish in Papua New Guinea. The humphead wrasse, also known as the Napoleon fish, is definitely among the more weird-looking sea-dwelling creatures. But beneath that kooky appearance, these fish have an awesome ability as well. They live in groups of females with one dominant male. So, if another male turns up, there's always a fight which will result in the most dominant one taking over the group. And if the male is getting a bit old or needs an upgrade, these fish have a nifty way to sort that out as well. When they reach a certain age and size, the Napoleon fish can actually change its sex. These guys can change from female to male. They're able to take themselves off for a few months and hang out in a secret lair, during which time the female humphead wrasse can transform herself from a smaller fish with ovaries to a massive, hulking male fish with big reproductive organs to prove it. Then that new male will likely go and have a punch-up with the older one and take over their role. These fish's special skills are not actually unique in the fish world, but they are an interesting example of the sex-changing abilities. Other fish often change the other way, from male to female, but there are some species that are fully hermaphroditic and able to reproduce entirely through self-fertilization for their entire lives. A clever and useful adaptation in the dangerous depths of the sea. Number 4. the giant needlefish in the Maldives. Here's a video of a guy catching a needlefish in the Maldives. He's extremely happy, apparently, as this is a very large example and also his personal best. Well, good for that guy. Less good for the fish, of course, though. Needlefish mostly live in shallow seas or on the surface of the open sea, but there are some that even live in freshwater environments like rivers and streams. Known for their speed and agility, needlefish are often seen skimming across the water's surface in pursuit of prey, which adds to their mystique as sleek and deadly hunters. Their streamlined bodies allow them to reach impressive speeds, making them formidable predators and difficult to catch. However, their sharp teeth and pointed snouts pose a unique danger, especially when they leap out of the water at high speeds. This behavior has led to unfortunate incidents where unsuspecting swimmers or fishermen have been injured, sometimes critically. They resemble American gars as they have a long snout and sharp teeth, but they're only actually very distantly related to these, despite their similar characteristics. They can also be extremely dangerous to people. There are many stories about needlefish leaping out of the water and piercing people, sometimes fatally. This fish is serious business indeed. Number 3. Baby shark with human face. Here's a weird shark that was caught in Indonesia. People seem to think that it has a face like a person, but to be honest, that's not like any person I've ever known. The shark's odd appearance sparked curiosity and even a bit of fear among locals, with some speculating that it could be a bad omen or a sign of pollution in the area. Videos and photos of the unusual creature quickly went viral online, drawing reactions ranging from disbelief to fascination. Marine biologists explained that such deformities can occur due to genetic mutations or environmental factors, though they remain rare. Despite its bizarre look, the shark was a stark reminder of how little we still know about marine life and its complexities. But what do you think? This is evidently a shark that had not fully developed, and its eyes had yet to be in their correct position. It's not a person shark, an alien, or any other type of oddity, but a poor, unfortunate baby shark that simply didn't make it. Number 2. Cat-faced fish. Well, here's a koi fish that seems to have the imprint of a cat face on its head. This is not entirely unusual. These sorts of markings have been spotted on fish everywhere. But this is the internet, so we're all amazed by such a crazy thing. Apparently, koi fish are a fairly familiar sight in ornamental ponds all over the world. These fish are prized for their bright color and patterning, as well as the extraordinary sizes that they can grow to. Koi carp can grow as long as 3 feet if they have enough space and a good diet. Speaking of diets, what do these monster-sized fishes actually eat? Well, we've seen a video of a massive koi gobbling down entire eels. Wow, so weird, as though it was just chucking back popcorn. These big fish generally find their food at the bottom of the pond or the lake, and they will usually eat other fish, fish eggs, insects, and algae. They use their twin barbels, those are the things that look like twiddly little mustaches, to detect food, and these sensory organs are built like a cat's whiskers but with taste buds attached so they can find food in the murky depths. Koi have been swimming around ponds since back in the 4th century in China, when they were first domesticated. And incredibly, the fish can often reach at least 50 years old. If they're kept in optimum conditions, they can regularly outlive their owners. The oldest koi on record was 226 years old. But how exactly anyone could keep track of that? Well, that's a bit of a mystery since it's more than twice the age of even really old people. Number 1. Cornet fish. At last, we have a guy fishing off a pier in Florida, and he's caught a cornet fish. These unusual fish are some of the most elongated types, and although they look like eels, they are different from them. Cornet fish have a long snout and distinct fins. These fish are found in the temperate and tropical waters around the world, from the Atlantic to the Pacific and Indian Oceans. They love to live in coastal waters, especially around sand flats and coral reefs, where they can find a whole lot of small fish and crustaceans to eat. It hurts or nothing, but it's just a really unique fish. The guy in this video tells us that this one is out of its normal habitat, probably because the coral reef had been suffering from bleaching and was dying in many places. He also says that they're actually related to seahorses and share a similar shape of mouth. He then plops the cornet fish right back into the sea. Well, that's all from the depths of the seas for today. Have you ever caught something truly unusual or just really cool? If so, let me know all about it in the comments section below. Don't forget to check out the other fascinating content popping up on your screen, and I'll see you next time.